Cool. Mark, it's great to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And it's really cool being here. Thanks for the
Yeah.
invite.
So before we get into your good work, and we already kind of established before we got on the IT connection here, and ironically, we had Wi-Fi issues with two IT guys.
Yes.
How many IT guys does it take to fix the internet? But I want to know
Uh-huh.
5 years ago, this whole pandemic was raging, threw us all into the unknown. How did you make it through that time period, and how much of living through that has affected the way that you do things now?
So it was a very interesting period. Like you said, I'm an IT guy and I've been in IT for almost 30 years. I started in 96 and I spent most of my life, IT life, in a corporate life. So I worked in IT infrastructure engineering. I moved on to consulting and then I had a large leadership role at JD Peet's, a coffee company. In about 2019, I decided that that was enough for me. I wanted to move on, wasn't sure what I was going to do. I decided I'm going to be an entrepreneur. So I would leave the corporate life behind and I was going to start my own business. I made that decision in 2019, not having any idea what was going to happen. And I decided in 2020, I'm going to one, transition to my successor. So I stuck around for a while to transition. And number two, I was going to start building my first startup. All of this was done, dusted, all the arrangements were made, my successor was already announced, and then the pandemic hit. So it was a very strange time. And of course, I did a bit of a safety net, but still, starting entrepreneurship like that is maybe not the best place and time to start it. I started doing a startup, which failed miserably because we never got any product market fit. That was okay. But I did work from home at the time because I didn't have an office, so I was working from home. Almost everyone was working from home, of course. And I did get, how do I say that? My attic was my attic, and there was nobody else there. I really started to miss people. So about 8, 9 months in, I decided that I did want to do something else, and I actually took an interim job to actually have some people around me. So it got me back in the life of Teams calls, of meetings, of being with other people. And I think that's really what helped. I got a request if I wanted to do an interim job, and I took it up. And I think I did that for most of 21 and 22. It was part-time, 3 days a week, but it was really what got me through that whole period. So it was a good experience. But I think that that really helps because building your business on your own is
Yeah.
quite tough. If you can't go anywhere because everybody's working from home, it becomes a lot tougher.
So let's get into exactly what you do right now in 2025. And to do that, to cut through it all, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. It's career day. Let's say they're in the fifth, sixth grade, and one of the kids in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
And that's a very hard question. I have two kids. My kids are no longer in school. They're 22 and almost 24 at this point. So they've graduated by now and they both have a job. And it's a very hard question. I mean, how do you explain, first of all, how do you explain IT
Yeah.
to somebody? Both of my kids are not technical. So I've always struggled to explain what IT is, what an IT leadership role actually means, because what they see from me when I work from home, they see me sitting behind a laptop and spending all of my day on calls. That's what they see. They don't see me. I mean, I'm a leadership role, so I didn't do programming. I didn't do anything else. I was just emailing, talking to people, and that was sort of my job. And I think that's really hard explaining. They understand IT. I mean, kids understand IT. They know what a laptop at home is. They know what a phone is. I find it very difficult how you manage, let's say, 10,000 laptops at a company, or how you manage an ERP. What is an ERP? I mean, yes, it's an accounting system, but how do you explain what an ERP is in a country that, or in a company that has 20, 30 different countries that they operate in? I find that a very difficult question, and I never found the perfect answer to get to answer that question. Um, so I'd say very quickly, I run IT. IT being all of the technology in a company, and that goes from like all the computers that people have, the phones that people have, and a lot of the software that people use. But still, answering that to somebody that's in middle school or high school, it's a tough question.
I get it. I totally get it. So let me ask you this. What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your ideal dream life?
When I was and this was actually all the way up to high school that I was doubting between two different careers. Neither of which was IT, by the way. The first, I have always been really interested in going to sea. So one of my two options was either joining the Navy or going to naval school. becoming an ocean captain. That was one of my careers. It was, I think, almost until my last year in high school that that was still an option for me. I lived in Rotterdam, which is one of the biggest harbors in the world. I love being on the water. That was one. I actually picked number two, which also wasn't IT, but I love physics. I actually studied to be a physicist. I actually didn't finish university. That's how I got into IT. But that's the other thing that I really wanted to do. I still, to this day, I mean, I read a lot of the physics news articles, the papers, just because I find it so interesting. But it's more of a hobby than anything else.
So take me back to where you were born and raised. What were these foundational elements of technology that were woven into you to have this decades-long career in the industry?
So I mean, I was born in the 70s, born in 75. When I was about 10 years old, we got our first computer at home, a gift from my grandma at that time. It was a Commodore 64. I think a lot of people had those in those days.
Yeah.
And we used it for a lot of games, but also we did some basic programming on there as well. That never really got me interested in IT so much. So it was cool. I got the experience. I used to write papers in school to do other things, but not really interested me in IT. That changed when I got into university. So when I got into university, and this was in 93, I started. And then it was really cool because I lived on a campus, university in the Netherlands, University of Twente. I lived on a campus and they got to internet very, very early on. So I think in 94, we all had email. In 94, I even had internet in my dorm room, which was crazy for those days.
Yeah.
And we just got to play. I got to play with so much stuff. I had a kid from another dorm. He introduced me to Linux. I think I did my first Linux install in 95. And I mean, I just found it all so cool. I loved tinkering with IT at that point in time. Went out of university, didn't make it into university, and I just loved IT. And that's how I really fell in love with IT.
So are you a Mac or a Windows guy? Steve Jobs or Bill Gates?
I have always been in my career. I've always been a Windows guy. So, and of course, corporate IT. I worked corporate technology. I worked in consulting. And I think it's been a bit of Windows, but also Linux, Unix. So, especially in my early days, I did a lot of sysadmin work for larger companies. So, for example, I worked for ABN AMRO. I did a lot of work for Shell, for other companies. I did quite a bit of Windows in my early days, like Windows NT, things like that, but also a lot of Unix, HVUX, and Solaris. So I did a lot of that in my early days as well. When I left my career, 2020, I switched to Mac. Now for me, it's Mac all the day. I find it very difficult to go back to Windows. My computer's a Mac, always.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember in my job as a technician, my boss at the time, we were Windows. It was all Dells and all of
Yeah.
that. And I remember I got my first Mac in 2018 and I was really getting into it. And I remember he was like, I don't think I want to learn another language. I'm going to stick with Windows.
Hmm.
Flash forward about 4 or 5 years, all Mac. Everything's Mac. And it's funny because there was
Yeah.
that sea change because it was Windows. And
Hmm.
so I'm curious, who's been kind of an inspirational force for you? Who's been kind of that um, heroic figure in your life and the work that you've done?
I think so many different people, and for me, it's mostly the people that I've seen and that I've really worked with. So in all of my career, I've had leaders, managers, people that I really looked up to and have really inspired me because of not just the way that they actually did their work, which I mean that's important, but how they came across to me as human beings, how they mentored me, and how they give me feedback, and how they really were there rooting for me to become better and to grow further. And I think I've had a lot of people like that in my career that were really helping me move on, mentoring me, giving me feedback and advice. I think a lot of those people have been absolute role models to me. I think that's one. Number two, I worked for Accenture for a long time. So about 2005 to about six to about 2015, I worked for Accenture. In about 2012, they actually decided that they wanted to give me a coach. As part of my career program, my career developments, they decided that I had the option of working with the coach. I did that, and she was absolutely incredible. We talked about so much stuff. We talked about career, but also my personal life. And I think the discussions that we had, they have really propelled me as a person in my personal development, but which has also led to my career development forward. So, and that's also where I was introduced to coaching, and that's why 10 years later, I actually studied to be a coach, and that's why I coach myself now because of that single experience, because of how incredible she was and what she did for me. And I actually get the opportunity to do some of that with other people as well. And I love that.
So, speaking of inspirations, if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, whether they're in the tech industry or they're an entrepreneur or otherwise, that you could hang out with, ask questions, get to know, that might help you on your journey, who would that be?
So actually, I do hang out with him, and that's why I'm going to give you this answer because I love the guy, Dan Martell. I don't know if you've ever heard of him or met him. I think he's one of the bigger entrepreneurs in Canada. He has a group coaching program which I've been part of for almost 2 years now, and I mean, I have a call with him every week where we talk about anything in business, marketing, sales, systems, mindset, and I mean, and this will probably happen in a year or two. He's probably the guy that I would really love to hang out with, just because I find him very inspirational, and I really he's he's taught me so much. I've learned a lot from him.
So, what motivates you every day to wake up to do the work that you do? I mean, when you're a coach and you're leading people, you got to kind of get into the world and it's heavy stuff. But you have a soul, you have a life you have to take care of. How do you balance that? What's your motivation every day?
So my motivation, that sort of also explains the coaching, is the people that I work with, and that's really what motivates me. I get most of my fulfillment, my enjoyment from working with people that are ambitious, that want to be better, that want to grow, that want to learn, that just want to also change something in the world. And even if it's a small thing, I mean, I work in tech, people that want to make the business that they work for better, people that want to make themselves better, that want to grow. That is really what motivates me. And the cool part is I work with people from all over the world. So I mean, I work with businesses in the Netherlands, but for example, last year I worked with Lipton, and I had the chance to work with quite a few people in a person in Dubai, quite a few people in India, and it's yeah, I love that part, working with people from all over the world. I have a development team in my company Tairi. I have a development team, about 6, 7 people in the Philippines, and I get to meet so many people from so many different backgrounds that are all have the same passion, the same ambitions, and I love that. That's the part that gets me up.
So, in the world of IT, lots have changed since we've been in it in the mid 90s. To this day, what is your favorite piece of software and what's your favorite hardware?
So I'd say it's evolving so rapidly, and that's the part I love. So I mean, my favorite piece of hardware probably my iPhone, which is sort of not too interesting, but I mean, it's what I live with every day, and it's changing so rapidly and it's advancing, and I just love that. I just love all the stuff that it can do. I mean, I saw my first smartphone probably 20 years ago. I think about 2006, 7, 8 is when we got the first smartphones, and it's gone so incredibly fast. I love that part. So that's the hardware. I also love my MacBook, by the way. So I'm a Mac guy, as we've established. I think favorite piece of software, and this is really boring, but I love the AI stuff. I just love following the AI stuff, all of the developments, and just tinkering with it every day. Even after 30 years, I just love to tinker with stuff. And it goes from tinkering with a bit of code here or there, integrating some APIs, and just playing with all of the large language models, the GPTs that are out there. I think that I just love it. And I just love that it goes so fast. I mean, I got access to ChatGPT 4.5 last week, and you can easily just put me there for a day or 2 days, just tinkering, seeing how it's different, and figuring out just how it works and why it's different. So
Yeah.
that that's the current day. Absolutely.
So the one thing about being in technology is that there's all these forces that are new, that are emerging, and that we have to wrap our heads around. And when you do that with AI, are you nervous about it, where it can go, how humans can interact with it? Do you think it can be destructive?
I do, and I think it's evolving very rapidly. And on the one hand, you have people that say AI doesn't really reproduce anything new; it just ties bits and pieces together. It just takes all the information that it knows and it just synthesizes something new that is already in its information, its database. It gets somewhere or it gets out of books or the internet. And there's people that are saying it actually is going to be able to create new stuff. I was reading an article yesterday about DeepMind, company that was acquired by Google, and there are so many different companies at this point that are trying to create an AGI, an artificial general intelligence that is smarter than us humans. And at some point, I read the book Singularity by Ray Kurzweil, and he says that at that point in time, when we get AIs that can actually advance themselves, AIs that can create better AIs, it's going to go incredibly fast, and the developments are just going to go faster and faster. I have read the book, and I think that is a part that makes me nervous. If we get to that point, and that point could be 10 years out, be 100 years out, and it could never happen. We have no idea at this point. So longer term, yes, absolutely. I think shorter term, also we can just look at this as AI is an incredibly cool tool. We've had so many revolutions in our history where people have said that it's going to take away so much work from people. We had the Industrial Revolution. We had the internet, of course. We had the mobile phone. And at every point of those changes, people said it's going to change the world so much. It's going to put everyone out of a job. And it never happened. It changed the work that people do, but it didn't take away all of the work that people had. Those are two different perspectives. I think at this point, nobody has any idea where this is
Yeah.
going. So I think that is the part that worries me. We have no idea where this is going. And AI is something that could change the world more. It's going very fast. So it's going a lot faster than all of these previous revolutions. I mean, Industrial Revolution took decades, and even the internet, it took 1 or 2 decades. Mobile probably took 5 years to really become part of our lives. This was a year that has become part of almost everyone's life, and it's across generations. I mean, you have Gen Z that is always or doing a lot of access to GPTs and AI. Also, boomers. There's almost no difference in age branches between Gen Z and boomers as to how much they actually use AI. So it's become an integral part of our lives, and it's gone so fast. And I think that is it's interesting, but also a bit worrying as to what it's going to do and how fast it's going to go.
I have heard from good tech minds out there that the main problem is what you just said. When it's an AI issue that AI latches onto and starts doing its AI thing, instead of it being human
Mhm.
driven that AI takes, it's the snake eating its tail. That's the fear, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know.
exactly. And if that happens, so the article I was reading from DeepMind, it says they've actually started to build a AI model, and DeepMind is the company that also built AlphaGo. They've been building AI models for 20 years, so they're not new to this. They're like the oldest and most well-known AI company before the rest even existed. They're now building a model that is going to be able to code, and not the way the Claude or ChatGPT does, but they're going to build a model that is better than an engineer, and they're building that model to build better AI models. And I think when we get there, it's yeah,
Yeah.
all bets are off, I would say.
Uh-huh. Yeah, totally. So, Mark, let me ask you this: if I put you in a room of everybody that you've coached or been in a capacity as an entrepreneur, and even the people that you've worked with throughout the years in corporate, and you walk into that room of people that know you in a business sense, and there's a podium, and you can tell them one fun thing about you that they may not know that would humanize you, one fun story, what would you tell that group of people?
I think the one fun story, and it's a story that I actually do share a bit, so some people may know, but this is what has really changed my life. I've been in IT for 30 years. I did my first outsourcing to India about 20 years ago, and that was my first time actually working extensively with somebody from another country. And it's gotten more and more a part of my life. In my career, I've traveled quite a bit. I've been to South America, I've been to Asia, I've been to so many different countries, and I've worked with even more different cultures. And I think that's the part that's changed my life. When I go to, let's take a country, when I go to Malaysia, I talk to people that are live in Malaysia, but that have a normal life in Malaysia. So it's not the tourist people that I speak to. I speak to a person that lives in Malaysia, that works in IT. They have a middle class life. They have a normal job. They have a family. We talk about their family. We talk about the city they live in, their work, their kids, their school problems, everything that's going on in their life. And what I find is that they are so incredibly close to us. So, I mean, I live in Western Europe. I've also spent quite a bit of time in the US. The lives that people live, the worries that they have, the concerns that they have, the passions that they have, the loves in their life, it is so close. And it doesn't matter what country you go to. You go to South America, you go to North America, Europe, Asia, if you go to Africa. So people are living very different or very similar lives no matter where you go. And I think that's the part that's been my biggest lesson over life. And that's also why I enjoy my job so well. I already said about people. It's why I really enjoy my work so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. So, of all the things that you've done and accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
My two kids, raising my two kids. I
Yeah, yeah.
would say that that's the first and probably most obvious answer. I think in work, so let's keep it let's stick to work, because of course family is something that I'm incredibly proud of, my two girls. Now in work, I think after 30 years, 25 years in the corporate life, making the decision to change my entire life around to go and do entrepreneurship, to start from scratch almost, because I mean I learned a lot about technology, about finance, about people, about recruitment, building teams. I knew absolutely nothing about marketing and sales and building a business. So making that decision at age 45 to throw my entire life around and go do something that I had no idea how to do, I think that's what I'm most proud of. And I think that's really what I want to continue doing. Just do things that are difficult, that are out there, just continue to stretch myself and yeah, just do really bold, fun, challenging stuff.
So, Mark, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
So I think that is something that changes over the years, of course. I mean, if I look at myself 20 years ago, I was a techie, but I was an extreme introvert. You wouldn't see me. I would be in the back of the room. I was the person that wouldn't speak up. That's changed. So I now do video online. I go on podcasts. You will actually, if you go to my social media on LinkedIn or Instagram, you will see me taking videos of myself, which is really putting myself out there, which is something I would never have done even a couple of years ago. So I think my perception of myself right now, somebody that knows a lot, has a lot of experience, and that really loves doing new, fun, and challenging stuff, becoming better so I can help others also be better.
So, if anyone wants to reach out, they want to hire you, any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
So two places. First of all, Tairi.co, Tairi.co. It's my company. I'm the CEO. It's what I'm building out. First place, find out more about the company. Second place, of course, LinkedIn. Look up Mark Wormgoor, Wormgoor, LinkedIn or Instagram, and you will learn a lot more about me, and you can find me there as well.
Excellent. I'll put all of those links in the show notes. Mark, this has been wonderful. Thank you,
Cool.
sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story.
Thank you, Joe. It was
Yeah,
fun being here. Thanks.
absolutely. Thank you. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.